Against all odds, Vinnie Pasquantino is back and is expected to play in Game 1 of the Wild Card Series. Let's talk about that next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can find us on wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, some co-hosting, and a little bit of producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, today is going to be one of two episodes, or at least this morning. This morning episode will be the first of two. We'll have one a little bit later on tonight. I've got plans after the game, so don't expect that episode until a little bit later on in the evening. I apologize for that, but that's exactly why I'm going with two episodes today. And I do want to go back to last week. I know we had a couple of listeners that were upset about me not getting an episode up after they clinched. Well, I had said last week that I had to record a Mailbag Friday early because I was going to be heading out of town for a family wedding, or maybe I had mentioned it, maybe I hadn't. That's my bad, but that's why we didn't get any episode up until yesterday evening, just because I had more family obligations, didn't get back till late Sunday night, and then with my other job, I had to do Chiefs post game, so it wasn't really a time for me to do an episode. I do apologize about that, but don't worry about this week. Probably going to have 6 episodes in total, if I'm being honest with you, because we'll have 2 today. We'll have another one tomorrow, likely after the game. And then depending on what happens in these first 2 games, we'll see where we're at on Thursday. But I expect to have more than 5 episodes this week because it's the postseason. Want to make sure everybody gets covered. And with it being game day, I was about to say game day eve, but you will be getting 2 episodes today, one before the game, one a little bit later on in the evening after the game. But the big news this morning is Vinnie Pasquantino getting activated to the postseason roster. We touched on that a little bit yesterday, but now he's officially back. And from what everything is being said on social media, he's expected to be in the lineup today. So a ridiculous turnaround. He had broken his thumb in Houston, game 1 of that series, when Lucas Erceg tried to field a ground ball with his bare hand. It bounced off his hand, and then he tried to throw it to first. He threw wildly, and I believe it was Yanier Diaz who was running the first base, but he and Vinny collided, broke his thumb. At that point in the season, I'll be completely honest, I thought his season was done because of the timeline that was given out the next day, which was 6 to 8 weeks. I put it closer to 8 weeks, which at that point felt very unlikely for the Royals to get that far in the postseason. But now I don't need to worry about that, because Vinnie Pasquantino is activated onto this playoff roster, and he's going to probably be there as long as the Royals are still competing in the postseason. And I think that shows you the type of player that he is, how badly it meant to him to get back, and also just medical technology. You know, when surgery goes well, which I think that surgery happened on September 3rd, to have that quick of a turnaround, we're talking less than a month. Vinnie Pasquantino, after surgery, was able to recover and be ready in time for a playoff game. And I had put this out there after the injury, and why everybody was so gutted for Vinnie is because I think he was one of those guys that deserved this more than anybody. I hate to rank any of the players of how much they deserved. I mean, Salvador Perez is at the top. That's undeniable. He stuck around on awful teams, and then now he's got his chance again to compete in October. But Vinnie was probably in the top 3 for me because he was such an icon of this team. Even the last couple of years, he put the Royals back on the map a little bit because he was willing to go do podcasts. He was in commercials. He gets the Pasquatch nickname. And so for him to go down for a 3rd consecutive year with an injury, you felt gutted for him. that in the Royals' best year in 9 years, nearly a decade, he's going to have to watch from the dugout as his team plays in front of sold-out crowds, whether it be on the road or at home. Felt terrible for him. But then we started to get the hints that he may be available and he's trending in the right direction. I wanted more than anything for him just to be activated. And even if that meant pinch hitting late in the game, he was available. He could get into that game rather than having to sit in the dugout in a sweatshirt with the cast or whatever it might have been to just watch everybody else, play the game that he loves so much, play with the teammates that he loves so much. And he is one of the leaders of this team. And I think that it's no surprise this team lost 7 straight twice after he got injured because he was that clubhouse presence. He was a guy that kept everybody up. He was a vocal guy. You bring in a lot of new players, but everybody meshes well together. But I think meshes even better when Vinny's out there. And I'm not putting any expectation on him. He recovered in 33 days. When there was a 6 to 8 week timeline, Vinnie Pasquantino recovered in 33 days. Today is the beginning of week 5. That's where we're at in the timeline. That's how quickly he recovered. And the part about fractures, because I don't know how many people listening, probably a good majority, have had a fracture before. But the good thing about a fracture when you are recovering is that once it heals, you feel pretty good. There might be some pain there, but you can rebound pretty well from it. If surgery goes well, your rehab goes well, the bone heals together, you're going to be fine. And that's what I brought up yesterday with it's good that Vinnie Pasquantino wasn't nursing a groin injury or a hamstring injury or a back injury. I mean, go across this year for the Royals. Michael Massey got put on the injured list 3 separate times because of a nagging back injury. Hunter Harvey could never get healthy because of the back spasms. Because when you are trying to work your way back, there's no guarantee that when you wake up great that morning, you feel great when you go to bed. And those guys kept having setbacks. But with a fractured thumb, if it heals properly, you're good to go. You probably feel as good as new. And that's what I imagine Vinnie Pasquantino felt like when he started taking BP. Hey, I feel good. These are live sessions here. I am facing big league pitching. Not in a live game, but I'm facing Will Smith out there. I'm facing some of the guys that are trying to work their way back. It's not just off a pitching machine. It's not just at 80%. I'm going 100% here, and I imagine the Royals wanted to see that first before they could make any decision. And once they got that, they felt like, hey, he's not going to injure himself any worse. He's going to be fine. We can DH him. We can play Yuli at first base, and we'll roll with that. And now this lineup looks a hell of a lot better with just one more guy added to it. It has a different feel now today. There's a different juice. There's a different energy in the air with Vinnie Pasquantino being activated. Now, as I'm doing this podcast, I haven't seen the lineup get released just yet. I assume by the time this gets posted, there will be a lineup out there, and we will know where Vinnie Pasquantino will be hitting. But yeah, as I'm actively checking this, no lineup out for either Baltimore or Kansas City. It just feels good to know that a guy like him is going to get a shot to compete in front of an atmosphere of what we're going to see today at Camden Yards. It's going to be fantastic. I'd imagine he's going to be hitting in the 3-hole. He'll be DHing. And if he's close to 100%, I know there might be some rust there to shake off, and he's got limited time to do so, but I'm not putting that level of expectation on him. Whatever he can give you, that's good enough for me. Now, am I going to be pleased if he goes 0 for 9 in 2 games or 0 for 6 or 0 for 7 with 7 strikeouts? I won't feel too good about it. But also to see how far he's come, to see the recovery process, how badly he wanted to be back there. And even right after surgery, he said, I don't feel like my season is done, whether that's dumb to believe or not. He never gave up that his season was over, and he'd already dealt with 2 previous season-ending injuries. And here he is getting a chance to play in the wild card round. He'll at least get 2 games to play, and the Royals lineup looks significantly better, even with one guy, than it did a few days ago. This gives you some more pop. This gives you some more boom in the lineup. and some more juice in that dugout now that Vinnie Pasquantino is back on this roster for the postseason. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, do I have any issues with who was left off the playoff roster? We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our title sponsor today in PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks and sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So get started today at PrizePicks. We got word this morning of who was going to be on the playoff roster, most notably Vinnie Pasquantino, but also who got left off. And the 3 notable guys that were left off the postseason roster were Alec Marsh, Carlos Hernandez, and Robbie Grossman. I think in a best of 3, you have to evaluate what's more important. And to me, when you're in a best of 3, you hope that your starters can go deep into the game, right? Let's all be honest here. The only way the Royals win this series, and we actually had a commenter yesterday, I loved the joke, it was that the Royals have about as good of a chance to win this series as I do of growing a decent man beard. And hey, I won't fight it. I've never been able to grow a beard. I only have this for warmth now that it's getting colder, though I have had the beard for a while. I've always been envious of people being able to grow the full beard in like 2 or 3 days. This is the best I can do. But hey, I can live with it. I would say this, though, if the Royals' chances are 0, my chances of growing a decent man beard are far less than 0. It's in the negatives, that's for sure. But for the Royals to win this series, they're going to need their starters to go deep into the game. There's no way around it here. They've got Brady Singer and Michael Lorenzen there in long relief. But if Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo can't go deep into the game, they're not winning this series. In fact, they're not winning a game in this series. That's where I'm at. Because you go over the course of every single game this year, 162, and you pinpoint when their starters went more than 6 innings, go look at their record. I don't have it right in front of me. Probably should have done that before this episode, but I'm trying to squeeze in 2 episodes today while having work in the game at the same time. But if Cole Reagans goes 3 innings today, I have very little confidence the Royals win. If Seth Lugo doesn't go 6 innings tomorrow, I don't have a ton of confidence that they win unless the offense explodes. And in the playoffs, let's all be honest here. There's not a lot of 14 to 13 games. There's not a lot of 10 to 9 games. You're getting the best of the best. You're not getting the long relief guy that's got a 6.5 ERA. If a starter doesn't go deep into the game, they're likely throwing another starter out there. Like if Cole Reagans gets roughed up or doesn't look good in the first 2 innings, enter Brady Singer or Michael Lorenzen. It's not going to be, well, now the Royals bullpen's been much better, but back then it would have been an Angel Serpa or Carlos Hernandez moment, or Alec Marsh in this case. Hey, we're just trying to bridge the gap a couple innings here and try to keep things close. No, you're throwing out some of your heavy hitters to keep this game close. But the fact of the matter is, the Royals can't win this series if their starters don't give them a good start. We've known this all season long. To put that type of pressure on the bullpen is not a recipe of success for this baseball club. But to me, I think you look at who's on it and who was left off it. Let's start with Alec Marsh. I don't have an issue with Alec Marsh being left off in a best of 3 series because I go down the list of what you need in your bullpen. You got 2 long relievers right now in Brady Singer and Michael Lorenzen. To carry a third one more so shows the lack of confidence that your starters are going to go deep into the game. I mean, with the 11 arms that they have here, you've got Reagans, Lugo, and Waka, your starting 3 right there. And then you're going to have Chris Bubich, Lucas Ursig, Sam Long, Michael Lorenzen, Daniel Lynch, John Schreiber, Brady Singer, and Angel Serpa. Who would you want to bump out there in favor of Alec Marsh? To me, I don't think there's anybody. I'd rather have Lorenzen out there. He's had better big league success this year, even though he's dealt with injuries, than Alec Marsh did. Daniel Lynch has thrown basically 21 scoreless innings since coming up from Omaha. I've got no issue with Daniel Lynch holding down that spot. Angel Serpa has the well-located at this point in time a 97 and 99 mile an hour sinker. I like him for the lefty-lefty matchup. So for Alec Marsh, and you're looking at replacing a righty with him, who's it going to be? Not Ursig, not Lorenzen, not Schreiber, and not Singer. I don't know how you could put Alec Marsh on the playoff roster with those guys right there. And I'm just not sold that Alec Marsh is going to be on this roster if the Royals advance to the ALDS. But that's putting the cart before the horse. Let's go with Carlos Hernandez. Same conversation here. Who does Carlos Hernandez replace of the right-handed pitchers? I think that they want to have a healthy dose of righties and lefties. So if you're going to add a righty to this bullpen, who's it going to be in front of? I don't see anybody here. And then you get to the only offensive guy that was left off the lineup or off the roster, and that's Robbie Grossman. I like that Robbie Grossman's got favorable splits when facing right-handed arms, and he would be a nice pinch-hitting option late in the game. But I go with this. If Vinnie Pasquantino's added, which he is, who do you pull off? I know that people are immediately screaming at their screen right now, or whether you're listening on Apple Music or Spotify, something like that, you're saying, well, take Adam Frazier or Garrett Hampson off the roster. What Garrett Hampson and Adam Frazier bring the Royals, and what they're going to want in a series like this, is defensive flexibility. That's been why they've stayed on the roster all season long. Robbie Grossman does not give you defensive flexibility. He plays the outfield, and your outfielders are Dairon Blanco, Kyle Isbell, MJ Melendez, Tommy Pham, and Hunter Renfroe. You're not moving anybody off that list. And for the bench guys, Garrett Hampson can be a pinch runner late. He brings you some speed. He also can play every single position on the field minus catcher. Adam Frazier can play every single position but shortstop and center. So that gives you defensive flexibility. If you wanted to pinch hit somebody late in the game and you needed them to be removed right after that, well, Garrett Hampson and Adam Frazier can go play that position. Garrett Hampson is an above-average defender. That's another reason why he's staying here. And I think we can also acknowledge the fact that Robbie Grossman didn't hit lefties well when he joined the Royals. He had one really big hit against the Nationals when the Royals desperately needed it in Game 2 of that series. But other than that, Robbie Grossman wasn't hitting that well. Tommy Pham and Yuli Gurriel were the better pickups of that waiver wire chaos the Royals had right after Vinnie Pasquantino's injury. So I don't have an issue in replacing Robbie Grossman with Vinnie Pasquantino. I don't have an issue with it. I don't know why I would. So those three guys, I can see why the Royals left them off. I know that we had talked for a few weeks about Alec Marsh and his role with this team and what it may look like. Did anybody realize that once Alec Marsh came back from Omaha, he started every single game basically? So he never really got that work as a bullpen guy, as a long relief guy. And I imagine that factored in, that when the Royals decided to leave Alec Marsh off the roster, okay, well, he doesn't know really this year how to pitch in short relief. He's just a guy that has started every single game that he's appeared in, basically. So to me, I think that makes a lot of sense. And Lorenzen has done this before. He's pitched in the postseason. He's been a guy that teams have been able to rely on moving from a starting role to a bullpen role. Alec Marsh was a reliever before, but never in a situation like this. And that's what I think it came down to. In a perfect world, Michael Lorenzen wouldn't have gotten hurt. They would have brought Alec Marsh back, and they could have worked him into that bulk inning situation. They could have worked him in as a one-inning guy, as a three-inning guy, as an opener. They never could because Michael Lorenzen got hurt. And even on Sunday, right? Yeah, it was Sunday. Alec Marsh started. They could have gone with Daniel Lynch, or they could have gone with Carlos Hernandez as an opener. but they decided to go with Alec Marsh. And to me, when you're looking at the relievers, the long relievers they have, I even forgot to factor in Daniel Lynch. You can count him as a long reliever for the postseason. So there's 3 guys right there. And that's why I think Alec Marsh was left off. Carlos Hernandez, you're not going to bump John Schreiber or Angel Serpa or Lucas Ursig or Sam Long or Chris Bubich out of there. Not for Carlos Hernandez. So to me, I like the moves they've made. I think this is the best possible roster they could have assembled, and it's even better now that Vinnie Pasquantino is back. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about some keys to game number 1 in Baltimore against the Orioles. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to another sponsor here in FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And I did check this because how can you not check this? But there are some good odds on Vinnie Pasquantino getting a hit today. So if you're listening to this at work or maybe you took work off, I would sprinkle in some cash on Vinnie Pasquantino either getting on base today or getting a hit for the first time in over a month, because he should be back in the lineup and facing Corbin Burnes today and the Baltimore Orioles. So that would be my pick for a little bit of fun in game 1 of this wild card series. Also want to give a shout out to Gametime. I know there's not a lot of time left of going out there to Baltimore to watch game 1, but maybe you're thinking about game 2, or you're going to wait and see how game 1 and game 2 go, and then maybe go to the elimination game in game 3 on Thursday. Or we can bring up another scenario here. You're already looking ahead to the ALDS or the ALCS and you want to buy tickets to that game. Well, head over to Gametime and look at the prices they have for you. The best seats, the best deals over there. It's where I go to buy all my tickets, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, concerts, comedy shows. They got it all covered. And I got my notifications on. So when there is a great new deal out, I can head right over to the app, buy those tickets, and get them back in no time. So download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. Well, as for the game today, the keys to it should be pretty obvious. I don't think that we need to sit here and dissect every single little player and what they can do and what play they need to make it and all that. We don't need to do that. I do think it's very simple what the Royals need to do, but also very difficult to do. It's simple in terms of just saying it out loud, but as the saying goes, easier said than done. I don't believe the Royals can play catch up regardless of how Baltimore's bullpen has struggled. If you are a road team and you are in a postseason game, the best chance you have of winning that said game is taking the crowd completely out of it from the get-go. I'm not asking the Royals to put up 5 in the first inning off of a 4-time All-Star and Cy Young Award winner. Wouldn't hurt, but I'm not expecting that and putting that expectation on them. But if you do jump out 2-0 in the first 3 innings, Cole Reagans is on his game, the offense is making Corbin Burnes work, that sucks the life out of the crowd. And it goes from Mardi Gras, a EDM party, if you will, a drunk tailgate where just everybody's going crazy. It goes from that type of atmosphere to a funeral home. It makes people anxious. It keeps them on the edge of their seat. They're waiting to erupt, but the Royals could be preventing them from doing that. Now, as I said, much easier said than done. This place is going to be a phenomenal atmosphere. It's going to be loud. It's going to be chaotic. I love playoff games there. I vividly remember Delman Young's go-ahead bases clearing double in 2014 off former Royal Joakim Soria. That place was as loud as I've ever heard a baseball stadium in a playoff game up until that point. Right, the Royals had some loud games. I remember on TV, I'm like, that place is impossible to win out if you're an opposing team. And the Royals found a way to do so, winning both the games in the ALCS the next week, basically. But to me, if you can take this crowd out of it, because that's what Texas did last year in the ALDS. That's why they swept the Orioles. They never really gave that crowd a chance to really get into it, to have a lead late, to put you in a bad position on the road. So that's the underdog mentality the Royals have to take. You can't mess around for the first 4 to 5 innings and screw up big opportunities to drive in runs, because if you don't drive in those runs, you're just letting Corbin Burnes settle in, right? You can't go out there and be down 2-0 after the first. It's going to allow that crowd to only get louder throughout the game. So when you're on the road in the postseason, the first course of action is eliminating that crowd noise. And for the Royals, that's going to be a tall task. This is a fantastic fan base. It's a fantastic crowd. And they sure as hell are going to be determined that last year doesn't repeat itself, where they get swept right out of the playoffs. They feel like this could be a good matchup for them because of the way the Royals offense has looked over the last handful of weeks. But now Vinnie Pasquantino is back, and that could give the Royals an extra spark in that lineup. Number 2, I think you have to also understand, as much as I said, working deep into this game with Cole Ragans is important, I think you have to be very much inquisitive about what innings 6, 7, and 8 may look like if Cole Ragans doesn't look completely in control in the first 3. If Cole Ragans sets down the first 9 on 33 pitches, well, I don't think you need to worry about the 6th, 7th, or 8th at this point in time. But if Cole Ragans is battling around, some early jams, but he's got no runs allowed through 3 innings, but he's at 56 pitches, I think you need to look into the future a little bit and go, we're not going to let this run into the ground. We're not going to let this train go off the tracks just to squeeze an extra inning out of Cole Ragans because he's our ace. I am always okay with pulling your ace early if you can see those signs early on in the game. If he's dominating, you don't need to worry about it. But if it's a grind in the first 3 innings, I don't want to get to a scenario where he's through 5 innings at 88 or 89 pitches and you go, well, it's a 1-0 game. He hasn't allowed a run to this point. Let's just throw him back out there for the 6th inning. Because if he's walked 3 in the game or he's been hit hard a little bit, you're 1 or 2 mistakes away from being down in the game. So I'm all right if Matt Quatrero says, all right, 6th innings coming around, middle of the lineup, it's Gunnar Henderson, it's Adley Rutschman, it's Anthony Santander. I mean, are we going to hate the move if he goes to Lucas Ursig for 2? Would we hate that type of move? That's what I would love to see. If it's 1-0 and the 6th inning rolls around to the middle of the lineup, I'm not going to hate a Lucas Ursig in that spot. Worry about the 9th inning later if you still got that lead. So to me, it's about evaluating where your starter's at after the first 3 innings there. Don't try to squeeze that extra inning out of him, and I don't imagine Matt Quatrero will try to mess around with that in a playoff-type game where losing today puts you on the ropes immediately. The last key that I think I will throw out there is when it comes to this offense, when it comes to driving in runs, I think you really need to take the approach of seeing and feeling Corbin Burnes out for the first couple of innings. I think the last thing you want for this offense to have success today is ambushing Corbin Burnes. He's too good of a pitcher to just swing first pitch or second pitch because you think it looks good. He's not some 4A guy that, I made a mistake, middle, you can crush that. Sometimes that pitch looks good. He's got that devastating cutter. It looks good right down the middle, and then it bores in on the hands of a lefty, or it tails away from a righty, and you have weak contact. There's a reason this guy was a game 1 starter for sure. He's a 4-time All-Star, Cy Young Award winner, and started the All-Star game for the American League this year. There's a reason for all of that. But to me, I'm all right if they can work the count, even if it doesn't result in any runs. We know where this Baltimore's bullpen is at. It's not as good as it once was. There are some issues in the back end. So if you can work the count, it's a Royals team that doesn't like to walk that much, but they also don't strike out a lot. If you can tax him in those first 3 innings and Cole Ragans can be on his game, that puts you in an advantage from where the Royals bullpen was at the end of September and where the Orioles bullpen was at the end of September. I'd be curious in a one-run game in the ninth who the Orioles would go to. I think it'd be Sir Anthony Dominguez. I'd also have to go back and see who else they've used since they let go of Craig Kimbrell, though he wasn't really closing out games toward the end of his tenure in Baltimore. But it's going to be more of a struggle, I think, for Baltimore, whereas last year they had the guys in the back end of the bullpen you didn't need to worry about. A little bit more of an issue this year for Baltimore. So taxing Corbin Burns, making sure you know where Cole Reagans is at after 3 innings, and more importantly, taking the crowd out of it early. Those would be my 3 keys of the game. It's going to be a tough one. We know the Royals are absolutely underdogs here. They are at odds. And as somebody said, the Royals have about as good as a chance of winning this series as I do of growing a decent man beard. But joke's on you, because I have a less than 0 chance of growing a phenomenal full beard. As much as I would want to, it ain't going to happen. But I'll take a Royals series win over growing a good beard anyway. All right, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, find Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Well, this is just one of 2 episodes tonight, or one this morning. We'll have another one a little bit later on this evening. Expected in the probably 9 to 10 o'clock hour, just because I've got things to do right after the game today. Got actually a birthday to attend of a buddy. But don't worry, I'll have everything covered throughout the game. And then after I get back from that event, that birthday dinner, I will be able to break down everything that happened in Game 1. But until a little bit later on this evening, you take it easy, Kansas City.